It's 6 o'clock, so we'll get started. Good evening and welcome to tonight's public hearing. My name is John Urino. I'm the zoning examiner for the city of Tucson. I conduct rezoning hearings on behalf of the mayor and council and make findings of fact, which I put into a written report, along with my recommendation, which I then send along to mayor and council for their consideration and for their final decision. My report will be based on the information submitted to me, which includes the rezoning application, the staff report, all written approvals and protests, all correspondence, and the testimony given at tonight's public hearing. I will also include in the record all documents submitted to me up to the close of the public hearing. A recording of tonight's testimony is being made. If requested, a transcript will be prepared and the video of the session will also be posted on the Planning and Development Services website. With that in mind, when I call on anyone to testify, I would ask them to please speak clearly and begin by stating their name and address. The process goes like this. First, I complete a preliminary report within 5 working days after the close of the public hearing. Then I prepare a final report. The final report will be issued 2 weeks after the close of the public hearing. For those of you who wish to receive a copy of the preliminary report and are not a listed party on the case, please send an email to tucsonrezoning@tucsonaz.gov. Again, tucsonrezoning@tucsonaz.gov, or call the Planning and Development Services Department. A copy of my final report will be available from the Planning and Development Services Department, and I send the final report to the mayor and council. At the scheduled public hearing on the case, the mayor and council will then vote on the matter based on my recommendation along with other factors. Tonight's public hearing will proceed in the following manner. I will open the public hearing and ask a representative of the Planning and Development Services Department to present the staff report. After that presentation, I'll ask the applicant or the applicant's representative to make his or her presentation. I will then ask to hear from anyone in the audience who wishes to speak. Since I cannot have any communication with anyone involved in the cases outside of this public hearing, if you want to speak, I would invite you to do so tonight. After anyone else in the audience has had a chance to speak, I'll ask the applicant or the applicant's representative if they wish to make any further remarks. With that in mind, the first case tonight is case TP ENT 10230042 Pepper Viner East Escalante Road. Mr. Beal, are you presenting the staff report on behalf of the Planning and Development Services Department?
No, tonight, Mr. Urino, Gabriel Slater will present it.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Slater, please go ahead.
Okay, so this is a request for a rezoning from Suburban Ranch to R2. It's on Escalante and Evergreen Road. It's about 700 feet west of the intersection of Escalante Road and Pantano Road. The applicant proposes to rezone a 6-acre area for the development of a 53-lot single-family residential community using a flexible lot development option. It's compliant with Plan Tucson and City of Tucson housing goals. It's compliant with the South Pantano area plan, specifically in using flexible lot development practices for more dense residential development along arterials, which Escalante Road is, and it's compliant with the Groves neighborhood plan. It also increases the ridership potential of nearby transit. The site improvements create a more pleasant pedestrian environment along Escalante and Evergreen roads. Let's see. And staff is in support of this rezoning.
Thank you, Mr. Slater. Would the applicant or the applicant's representative like to be heard?
I would, yes.
Sorry, there was one point that I was going to make. We had a revision to condition 7, and so I was going to read the new condition aloud for the record. The existing condition 7 was building shall be restricted to a single story with a maximum height of 16 feet in lots 20, 26 to 38, as depicted by the preliminary development plan, which is to be replaced with lots 14, 20, 26 through 36, and any two of the lots in the row containing 15 to 19 and 39 to 42 shall be restricted to single-story homes with a maximum height of 16 feet. And those lot designations are per the preliminary development plan. Okay, now,
Thank you, Mr. Slater. Appreciate it. Would the applicant like to be heard?
Yes, please. Good evening, Rob Longacre from the WLB Group. I'd like to share my screen as well.
Yes, please go ahead.
All right, hopefully you can see my screen now.
I can, thank you.
Great. Good evening. As I said, Rob Longacre from the WLB Group. I am representing the rezoning request this evening. I'm also joined by Liz Madsen, who works with me at WLB, as well as Bill Viner and Steve Crawford from Pepper Viner. Thank you for the time this evening to consider this rezoning request. Also, of course, wanted to thank City Tucson staff, especially John Beal and Gabriel Slater, for their work that was done to bring this case before you this evening. I just wanted to spend a few moments talking about Pepper Viner, and you may already know this, but it's worthwhile revisiting the firm. Pepper Viner is a local home building company. They were established in the year 1985, and the company has developed over 40 residential neighborhoods, including the recent Corbett Village project, which is located near 29th and Craycroft. This project, and the reason I bring it up, is very similar to the proposal tonight for the Evergreen. It has proven to be highly successful and popular for individuals, couples, and families looking for affordable housing options in the city of Tucson. In fact, 49 of the 71 lots in Corbett Village have sold in a short period of 1 year. So Pepper Viner is very excited about the Evergreen and thinks it too will provide excellent housing choices for those who need affordable housing. Let me talk a little bit about the nature of the proposed community. So this truly is an infill project. It makes use of existing infrastructure that has capacity to serve the proposed community. This includes roads, utilities, parks, commercial services, employment areas, a church, and the school system. This site enjoys all this infrastructure in close proximity, making it an ideal location for homebuyers looking for a well-designed new home and community that works with their budget. There's easy access to Lincoln Park, Lakeside Park. The Fred Ant Golf Course is less than a mile from the site. The Rolling Hills Greenway and the Atterbury Wash Greenway are both less than a mile from the project site. Schools, Santa Rita High School is just east of this site. 2 elementary schools are located within 1 mile of the project. Fry's, Safeway, and the Walmart Neighborhood Market are all within 2 miles of the rezoning property. And a gas station and a Quick Mart are just across the street on Escalante. There's capacity on surrounding roads to serve the project. Fire Station 13 is less than a mile from the site. And as Gabriel mentioned, there's even a bus stop adjacent to the north boundary of the property. Just want to take a minute or two to review the proposed site plan. So the site itself offers 53 single-family detached residential lots. As Gabriel mentioned, the project is proposed as an FLD. It provides functional open space as required by an FLD in the form of walking paths, sitting areas with picnic tables, dog walking areas, and also a little library that Pepper Viner likes to include in their communities. It's for sharing of books. The community will be attractively landscaped, and required landscape borders are provided along street frontages, as well as along the east boundary adjacent to the commercial property to the east. Vehicular access points are located in accordance with City of Tucson standards. Guest parking areas are compliant with City of Tucson standards, and we've spread them throughout the site to make them easy, accessible, and convenient. The project will also provide a new 6-foot wide sidewalk along the western boundary of the site, or the eastern side of Evergreen, and this will fill in a gap where a sidewalk is missing. It will connect to an existing sidewalk just to the south of the site, on the south, of course, And to the north, it will connect to the existing sidewalk on the south side of Escalante. If I may touch for a moment on planning policy compliance, and Gabriel mentioned this, but any rezoning proposal must meet certain criteria, and of particular importance is compliance with planning policy documents. The project is compliant with Plan Tucson, the South Pantano Area Plan, and the Groves Neighborhood Plan. Neighbor input, we did hold a neighborhood meeting on October 5th. We had actually one person attend the project, woman that lived just south of the site. She was pleased to hear that there were single-story height restrictions in the southern portion of the site. She was also happy the site is going to be developed. She mentioned that the site in its current condition is somewhat of a nuisance in its undeveloped condition, providing sometimes brush fires, causing sometimes brush fires to be started on the property, homeless activity, and sometimes there's trash appearing on the property. To date, I have not been contacted by any other neighbors in the area. Last few things, the staff report and the conditions of approval. We have read the staff report. We agree with its findings. We are also in agreement with the proposed conditions that Gabriel mentioned. Thank you for your time this evening. My team is available if you would like to have any further discussion on the proposed project.
Thank you very much, Mr. Longacre. I don't have any questions at the present time. Would anyone else in the audience like to be heard on this case? Hearing no one, I'm going to close the public hearing on case TP-ENT 1023000042 Pepper Viner, East Escalante Road. Thank you very much, Mr. Longacre.
Thank you very much, Mr. Reno. Appreciate it.
The next case is case TP-ENT 1123000043 Pantano Self-Storage. Mr. Slater, are you presenting that?
Yes, I am. So this case is a proposed rezoning from C1 to C2 at approximately 8750 East Golf Links Road. It's a roughly 2 1/3 acre property for the purpose of building a multi-story personal storage facility or self-storage facility. It's a proposed 3-story structure, main vehicle access through golf links. There's also a cross-access agreement with the parcel to the west, which I think is part of a related development proposal. And that also had its own rezoning, I think, earlier in 2023. And it's currently a vacant site. And the applicant held a neighborhood meeting on September 12th within walking distance of the site, I think at a church or community center, a little bit east of the Rivendell condominium complex. I think there was one attendee who said they lived close to the site, had questions about hours of operation, mechanical equipment, noise, and landscaping. The applicant team says they answered all the questions. The design compatibility report shows that they're meeting all their landscaping requirements, and they've made some design considerations for light infiltration using downlighting and security, using security cameras to monitor the site at all times. And the mechanical equipment, I believe, is going to be up on the roof and screened from view. The proposals compliant with Plan Tucson and the South Pantano Area Plan. Upzoning for commercial adjacent to arterials is it's a recommended method of development per both plans. Subject to the compliance with the attached preliminary conditions to the staff report, staff is supportive of the approval of this C2 rezoning request.
Thank you, Mr. Slater. Would the applicant like to be heard?
Good evening, Mr. Urino. This is Rory Juneman of Lazarus and Sylvan, 5983 East Grant Road. I want to start off by thanking Mr. Slater and Mr. Beal for their help with this case. There's some members of our team that I'd like to introduce. They might provide some feedback later, but Robin Large and Jackson Cassidy from Lazarus and Sylvan. Todd Decker is with us here, and then Steve Koner, they're part of the development team. And then Herman Valenzuela is our civil engineer is on the line, as well as our architect, Pam Vickers from RKA in Phoenix. So Mr. Urino, are you okay if I switch over to some slides?
Yeah, go right ahead, please.
All right, can you see that?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
Great. So our location, we're on the south side of Golf Links, just east of Pantano Parkway. We're about 3/4 of a mile west of Harrison Road. This is part of a vacant strip of land that you're probably familiar with, at least with a couple other cases. But in this area, this property is part of a larger area of C1 zoning, which I think is fairly original zoning from the annexation. But over time, part of this area has become residential. So the C1 zone area to our south has become single family residential. On the north side of Golf Links is also some area that's C1 that's become single family residential. But right along Golf Links itself, it's really, at least in our area, it's been developed and is continuing to develop as commercial uses that are primarily there to sort of serve the area, the areas around us. So Circle K was developed right in the late 90s, and then most of the uses on the north side of Golf Links are kind of older. So there's a few newer buildings, but a lot of them have been there for a while. But as you know, the 3 parcels now that are on where our property is have really just been recent. I think we were before you in the summer, September 22. In September, that was authorized by Mayor and Council, and actually a few months ago, the final ordinance was adopted for the tire shop that's in the middle of this stretch of vacant lots. Then earlier in 23, you saw the car wash proposal. Both of these were rezone requests to C2 because C1 didn't permit those uses. So there was really a need for those uses to rezone to C2. We are asking for C2 zoning as well, but our case is a little unique because in C1, personal storage is allowed. It just comes with some fairly restrictive and I kind of think outdated use standards requiring if you're in C1, storage has to can't be higher than 16 feet. So it limits it to 1 story. And it's really sort of a code provision that I think envisioned the old style of personal storage. As you've seen with some of our other cases, and I'm sure others, and just by looking around town, storage has really evolved, and most new storage, not all, but most new storage is in self-contained buildings, multiple stories. We're requesting 3, but that varies. But they're climate controlled. Most of the loading is done from the interior. So they're just a different sort of form of building that requires more height. And that's why we're asking for this rezoning. But like most storage, it's very low traffic. The customers don't come that often. Really, the traffic is mainly the employees and then just a few trips per day from customers. But overall, low traffic and low overall nuisance impacts as well. So we are asking to go to C2. As you probably know, C2 allows for height up to 40 feet, but our project is lower. C1 has a maximum height of 30. We're asking for 34, kind of in between those 2 maximums. So here's our site plan. I just kind of want to walk through a little bit of how our site functions. I'll start off with traffic circulation. Almost all the traffic is going to come to and from Golf Links. There is Mr. Slater mentioned in the plan conformance, and then with our project and all these projects from the Circle K all the way down to ours, there's a requirement that there be kind of internal cross access. So there's actually will be connections, and there is a cross access agreement already in place that would allow somebody, if you were getting gas at the Circle K, you wanted to get a car wash, check your tires, and then maybe end up at the storage. You can do it without exiting on to Golf Links. It's cross access all the way across the strip. I think that was the intent when this was put in, was just to maybe help relieve some of the traffic on the arterial. We have essentially kind of a ring road around our building. We are going to, almost all the units are going to be accessed from the inside, but there is some demand for kind of drive-up units. So we're going to include a few of those on the west side and a few of those on the east side. But for the most part, most of the loading in this project is going to occur in that area on the north side of the building where you see 3 parking spaces. Those are technically loading spaces, but there's three parking spaces for customers to come in. There'll be a key code at the building, and then they can load or unload from there, go inside, go to an elevator, or access their unit from that one kind of central point. The front office is a little under 1,200 square feet, likely a couple of employees at a time, but not a lot of employee activity. And again, like I mentioned, not a lot of traffic overall at the site. Security is, because most of the units are inside, the project is going to be pretty tight and secure. Not a lot of ways into the building or out. There will be, like, again, those drive-up units will be accessed from the outside, but the vast majority of units will be accessed from the inside. And the operator will have security cameras around the building and inside the building, and then controlled access through key cards to get inside. I forgot to mention the front office will probably open standard business hours, 8 to 5, 9 to 6. But the hours of operation we proposed for people to come in who are just using their key cards, maybe after hours or before hours, is from 6 to 10 p.m. But between 10 p.m. and 6 a.m. in the morning, no access will be allowed. The surrounding properties, there's going to be some pretty significant buffers around our edges. On the very outside, there will be a wall that runs from essentially our northwest corner all the way around to the south side of the building, and then all the way up to the northeast corner of our building. At where the walls end, we'll have gates, so the access to the drive-up units will still be controlled by key cards. They won't be open access. They'll be behind a gate for security and safety. But the wall basically around our east, west, and south will be 6-foot masonry wall. That includes the area on our east next to the townhomes. On the outside of that wall, we'll have trees planted, and then those trees will be on the inside of our wall for our south and our western facades. On the north side of the building, where there's the street facing, we won't have a wall. We'll have screening to meet code, which will consist of mostly trees and vegetation. Our setbacks, because we're in a C1 zone, and the zones that are around us are not residential, so there's O3 to the east and C1 to our south. We actually don't have any setback requirements, but just to provide adequate setbacks to those residential uses, on the south, we've got a 47-foot setback from our property line to the south facade. There's also another 5 feet there before you get to those single-family walls on their side of the property. So really, it's more like a 52-foot setback to their wall. And then on the east, it's 46-foot setback from our east facade to the property line. And then on the west, that's almost a 59-foot setback there. So significant setbacks above, definitely above what's required, but we think these are nice setbacks for these areas, particularly the residential. Oh, and then on the north, there's over 100-foot setback to the road because there's some extra right-of-way there that's been dedicated as part of the plat for these 3 parcels. So that creates a pretty wide gap between our building and golf links. We're providing on this plan 17 parking spaces, but that doesn't include the 3 loading spaces because under their code, they're kind of technically different. In this case, they're really not different. They're just the loading spaces are going to be parking spaces. But the code does require for this use 28 spaces. So outside of this process, we're asking for an individual parking plan approval. And the basis of that is pretty simple because, again, this is a low trip generating, low traffic generating, low customer generating use. So 28 parking spaces is just way over what's necessary. Probably the 17 is over what will be necessary for this use. So we're asking for a reduction of 9 spaces to 17 plus, to 17. And that math doesn't work because one of the spaces in our loading area we're using for as one of the proposed parking spaces, so or reductions. And then this is just the trip generation, 152 daily trips, so very, very low trip generation. Just quickly wanted to show you the architecture, the conceptual drawings for how the building will look. A lot of metal siding, very varying colors, but definitely not just a stucco building. It's our architect has definitely put some thought into this. The windows on the back. This is the north facing, street facing facade. This is our rear facade. These are kind of spandrel windows. There's no view to these. They're just decorative windows. And then this is both our east and our west elevations. Again, not side windows. They're just glazing for architectural purposes. Our client has done some other storage projects. This is just one up in Phoenix that we threw in just to kind of give an example of what they do, and it shows the interior and exterior of this project. So for our outreach, we did, as Mr. Slater said, we did have a neighborhood meeting. There was one attendee who actually we were pretty familiar with from our, we represented the tire operator next door. So we knew Mr. Todd, and he had a lot of questions, but they were all very good questions. And I think he walked away being satisfied. We had one phone call from another neighbor just last week that we talked to. He submitted a letter of protest. He wasn't real happy with the project. But other than that, we haven't got any phone calls and haven't had any other interactions. We've obviously kept Ward 4 up to date of the progress as well. We did have 4 letters of support and 5 letters of opposition. I did want to address a few things from the letters of opposition. A few of them mentioned a fear of decrease in property values. And you know, that's something that's hard to qualify, but I really think actually the opposite is true, that uses like the storage and the tire shop and the other uses that develop in these commercial corridors that are kind of typical arterial uses or typical uses along an arterial. If they're close to residential, I think that actually is a benefit to residential. Close proximity means convenience for a lot of those residents, and instead of having a negative impact, probably neutral, but may even be positive. There are definitely some uses out there that aren't positive. Was actually reading up, and there's some literature on things like bad schools, cemeteries, power plants do draw down property values, but everything that I've seen is that the uses that are typical around our commercial residential streets are actually a benefit. Another concern was increased traffic. I think we've shown by our traffic study that this use in particular is not going to cause any appreciable traffic in this area. Increased crime. Again, I think by actually developing on this land, that's a good thing. Right now, vacant land in town comes with its own set of challenges, including encampments. I went out there yesterday, and now there is an encampment out there, and that was actually brought up in one of our letters for approval as a reason to approve this. So by developing it, I think you put the property active use, and we have security cameras around. The building is pretty locked up, so I don't think crime is going to increase at all. And then noise pollution. Golf Links is a busy road. I think our traffic study says 31,000 average daily trips. With that traffic comes a lot of noise. We are proposing a nice sized building, but that building the positives of it will insulate some of those single families from the noise of Golf Links. And then increased light pollution. I think with our outdoor lighting code, really we're required not to have light spill over, to use lighting that is shielded and it faces down. So I think that's really taken care of by our code, which is a great thing. So just to finish up, Golf Links is a very busy corridor. This stretch has been evolving over the last few years with uses that I think are appropriate for this area. The storage use will complement these two auto uses because it's a quiet use and it'll have little traffic. And it doesn't really add any true intensity, at least in the zoning context. So we're agreeable to these conditions, and we just respectfully request that you recommend to approve, and we're happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Newman. I don't have any questions right now. Would anyone else in the audience like to be heard on this case? Hearing no one, I'm going to close the public hearing on case TP-ENT 112300043 Pantano Self-Storage East Golf Links Road. Thank you very much, everyone, and have a lovely evening. Good night.
Thanks, John.